Your life as every level of a narcissist. Have you ever met someone who could walk into a room full of strangers and leave with everyone's attention? Someone who seemed charming, confident, funny, almost perfect. At first, they make you feel like the most important person in the world. They remember every detail about you. They compliment you. They laugh at your jokes. They make you believe you've found someone who truly understands you. But weeks later, something changes. The compliments become criticism. The affection becomes control. The person who once made you feel special now makes you question your own memory, your own decisions, even your own sanity. And somehow, you still want their approval. How does someone become like that? Are people born narcissists, or do they slowly become one? Today, you're about to experience every level of narcissism, from a child desperate to be noticed, to someone who destroys every relationship they touch. This is your life as every level of a narcissist. Level 1, the need to be seen. It starts much earlier than anyone realizes. You're 5 years old. You run into the living room holding a drawing. You spent an hour making it. To you, it's perfect. You smile. "Mom, look what I made." She barely glances at it. That's nice. Then she goes back to her phone. A few minutes later, your older brother walks in with a soccer trophy. Everyone stands up. Your parents cheer. Pictures are taken. Relatives are called. The trophy goes on the shelf. Your drawing ends up in the trash. You don't understand why. But something changes inside you. Maybe, if you were better, people would notice. The next day, you draw another picture, then another, then another. Each one bigger, more colorful, more impressive. You're no longer drawing because you enjoy it. You're drawing because you need someone to say, "I'm proud of you." But sometimes, that never comes. Children don't naturally crave power. They crave love, attention, acceptance. When those needs aren't met consistently, some children begin believing attention isn't given, it's earned. And once you believe that, everything becomes a performance. You start watching people closely. What makes them smile? What gets applause? What makes teachers choose one student over another? Slowly, you stop asking, "Who am I?" instead. You ask, "What version of me do people like the most?" Without realizing it, you're building your first mask. At school, you become the funny kid. Not because you're funny, because people laugh. You tell jokes you don't even understand. You interrupt class. You exaggerate stories. Your classmates finally notice you. For the first time, being noticed feels better than being yourself. Attention becomes addictive, and addictions always grow. Soon, a simple compliment isn't enough. You need everyone looking at you. If another student gets praised, something feels wrong. Why them? Why not me? You don't hate them, not yet. You just hate feeling invisible. And that feeling will shape every relationship you'll ever have. Years pass. Now you're 12. You've become good at pretending. Teachers call you talented. Friends call you confident. Adults say, "You're going to do great things." Every compliment feels incredible. For a moment. Then, it's gone. You need another one. And another. No matter how much praise you receive, it never feels like enough. Because deep down, you're still that little kid holding a drawing, waiting for someone to really look. But nobody ever sees the child anymore. They only see the mask. And every year, that mask becomes harder to take off. You don't know it yet. But this isn't confidence. It's the beginning of something much darker. Because when your self-worth depends entirely on how other people see you, you'll eventually do anything to control what they see. And that's where the next level begins. Level 2. The Golden Child. Something changes when you realize attention isn't random. It's earned. Or at least, that's what you believe. You're 13 now. Every test, every game, every conversation feels like a competition. Not because you enjoy winning, but because losing feels like disappearing. When someone else gets praised, you don't hear their achievement. You hear your own failure. Your friend gets the highest grade in class. Everyone congratulates him. You clap. You smile. You even tell him he deserves it. But inside, something burns. You replay the moment over and over. Why him? I studied too. I'm smarter than him. You don't celebrate other people's success anymore. You compare it to your own, and comparison becomes your new addiction. Soon, being good isn't enough. You have to be the best. Second place feels like last. If someone runs faster than you, they're your rival. If someone looks better than you, they're your competition. If someone gets more attention, they're your enemy. Not because they've done anything wrong, but because every compliment they receive feels like one being taken away from you. The world slowly becomes divided into two groups: people above you and people below you. Equals don't exist anymore. Your confidence grows. At least, that's what everyone thinks. Teachers admire your ambition. Friends admire your charisma. Parents brag about you. You'll be successful one day. Those words become fuel. You start believing you're different, special, destined for something greater. Maybe you really are better than everyone else. At least, that's the story you tell yourself. Because believing you're extraordinary hurts less than wondering if you're ordinary. By 16, you've mastered first impressions. You know exactly what people want to hear. You compliment teachers. You charm adults. You make new friends within minutes. People describe you with the same words: confident, funny, charismatic, leader. They don't realize they're meeting a version of you carefully built for their approval. You laugh at jokes you don't find funny. You pretend to enjoy hobbies you secretly hate. You mirror people's personalities, not because you're fake, but because every interaction has one goal: be admired. You begin noticing something strange. When people admire you, you feel alive. When they ignore you, you feel empty. It's almost physical, like someone turned the lights off inside your mind. So you chase admiration even harder. You post more photos. You tell bigger stories. You exaggerate your achievements. The truth starts becoming flexible. Not because you're trying to lie, because reality doesn't always make you look impressive enough. Then, you discover something even more powerful than admiration: control. If you can control how people see you, you never have to feel invisible again. So you polish every detail: your clothes, your words, your posture, your social media, even your personality. Everything becomes carefully designed. People don't know the real you anymore. They know your performance. And the performance works. Everyone likes you. Or at least, they like the version you've created. But there's a problem. Every performance eventually ends. Eventually, someone notices the cracks. Someone questions your story. Someone points out a mistake. Maybe they say, "I don't think you're always right." Most people would shrug it off. But to you, it feels like an attack. Not because they're insulting you, because they're threatening the image you've spent years protecting. Suddenly, Your heart races. Your face gets hot. You interrupt them, correct them, embarrass them. Anything to make sure nobody questions your perfection. Later that night, you convince yourself they were jealous. Of course they were. Why else would they criticize you? You never stop to ask whether they might have been right, because admitting you're wrong feels impossible. If you're wrong, maybe you're not special. If you're not special, maybe you're invisible again. And that's the one thing you've spent your entire life trying to escape. By the time you graduate, everyone thinks they've figured you out. They think you're confident, ambitious, successful. But confidence doesn't need constant applause. Real confidence survives criticism. Yours doesn't. Because underneath the compliments, the trophies, the perfect smile, the expensive clothes, the carefully crafted image, lives the same frightened child, still holding a drawing, still waiting for someone to say, "You're enough." But those words never come. So instead, you decide something else. If people won't love you unconditionally, you'll make sure they admire you instead. You don't realize it yet, but admiration isn't love. And soon, you'll stop caring about the difference, because the next level doesn't just crave attention, it learns to use people to get it. And that's when the real manipulation begins. Level 3. The charmer. You're 18 now. People love being around you. At least, that's what it looks like. You've learned something most people never do. People rarely fall in love with the truth. They fall in love with how you make them feel. And you're very good at making people feel special. You remember birthdays. You remember favorite songs, favorite foods. Little details people mention only once. Not because you genuinely care, but because information is power. Every secret someone tells you, every insecurity they confess, every dream they reveal, becomes another tool you can use later. Not yet, but eventually. Then one day, you meet someone. They're kind, funny, confident enough to attract your attention, but insecure enough to need your validation. Perfect. At first, everything feels magical. You text them every morning, every night. You call them beautiful. You tell them they've changed your life. You buy small gifts. You make impossible promises. "I've never met anyone like you. I've never felt this way before. I think you're my soulmate." And maybe, for a brief moment, you even believe it yourself, because admiration feels intoxicating. They begin thinking about you constantly, checking their phone every few minutes, waiting for your messages. They've never felt this loved before. Neither have you. But you're not building love. You're building dependence. And there's a difference. Weeks pass. The relationship moves incredibly fast. Friends tell them, "This seems too good to be true." They ignore the warning. Why would they listen? You've made them feel like the center of your universe. You know exactly what to say, exactly when to say it, exactly how to become the person they've always dreamed of. It's almost effortless now. You've done this before. Different names, different faces, same story. Then, something changes. Not because they've done anything wrong, because you've gotten used to their admiration. What once felt exciting now feels normal. The compliments don't hit the same. The attention isn't enough anymore. Your addiction has grown. You need more. You begin pulling away. Replies become shorter. Phone calls become less frequent. You cancel plans. You suddenly become busy. The person who once flooded them with affection starts acting distant, confused. They ask, "Did I do something wrong?" You smile. "No, I'm just tired." But you're not tired. You're testing them. How much will they chase you? How hard will they fight for your attention? Because if someone chases you, it proves your value. Or at least, that's what you tell yourself. Soon, they start apologizing for things they didn't do. I'm sorry if I upset you. I'm sorry if I was annoying. I'm sorry. You notice something. Every apology gives you a strange sense of satisfaction, not because you're happy they're hurting, because for a moment, you feel powerful. For once, someone else's emotions depend on you. You finally have control, and control feels even better than admiration. You begin creating tiny little tests. Nothing obvious. Just enough. You disappear for hours without explanation. Then act completely normal. You flirt with someone else. Just enough for them to notice. You compliment other people in front of them. You criticize small things. The old haircut suited you better. You've changed. I liked who you were before. They're hurt, but they don't leave. Instead, they try harder. Exactly what you wanted. Every relationship becomes predictable. First, you idealize them. Then, you criticize them. Finally, you convince yourself they're the problem, because if every relationship ends the same way, it can't possibly be your fault. Can it? One night, they finally ask the question you've been avoiding. Do you even love me anymore? You don't answer immediately. You let the silence do the work, because silence can manipulate people better than words ever could. Eventually, you sigh. I don't know. 3 words. That's all it takes. Suddenly, they spend weeks trying to earn back the love they never actually lost. They buy gifts, write long messages, change their personality, abandon hobbies, distance themselves from friends, all because they're trying to become the version of themselves they think you'll love again. They don't realize nothing they do will ever be enough, because the problem was never them. The problem is that nothing fills the emptiness inside you. Not praise, not success, not relationships, not power. The hole keeps getting bigger. Deep down, you still fear one thing above all else: rejection. Not because it hurts, because it reminds you you aren't in control. So before anyone gets the chance to leave you, you emotionally leave them first. It's safer that way. You tell yourself, they were boring. They became too needy. They changed. Anything except the truth. The truth is, you never let anyone get close enough to love the real you, because you're terrified. If they ever saw who you really are, they might walk away. And that fear is about to create something even more dangerous, because once charm is no longer enough, a narcissist discovers something far more effective: manipulation. And at the next level, people stop becoming partners. They become possessions. Level 4, the manipulator. By now, you've stopped chasing admiration. You've found something even more powerful: control. Because admiration can disappear. Control can keep people around forever. Or so you believe. At 23, you don't enter relationships looking for love anymore. You enter looking for influence. You study people before they even realize they're being watched. Who needs approval? Who hates conflict? Who grew up without affection? Who always apologizes? You notice the quiet ones, the people pleasers, the overthinkers, the ones who blame themselves for everything. Not because they're weak, but because they're easier to shape. At first, nothing changes. You're still charming, still generous, still attentive. You remember everything about them. You become exactly who they've always wanted. They tell their friends, "I've never felt so understood." And for a while, that's true, because you're listening, not to understand them, to map them. Every insecurity, every fear, every childhood wound, every weakness, quietly gets stored away, like pieces on a chessboard, waiting for the right moment. Then, the game begins. One evening they say, "I thought you said we were meeting at 7. You smile. "No, I said 8. They hesitate. "Really?" "Yeah, you must have remembered wrong." They apologize, even though they were right. You don't think much of it. It's just one conversation, a tiny crack. A few days later, it happens again. "I never said that. You're imagining things. You're too emotional. You always overreact." Little by little, they begin questioning their own memory, their own judgment, their own reality. Not because they're losing their mind, because you're slowly replacing it with yours. Months pass. Now, before making even the smallest decision, they ask you first, "What do you think? Was I wrong? Did that really happen?" Without realizing it, they've stopped trusting themselves and started trusting you instead. That's exactly what you wanted, because someone who doubts themselves rarely doubts you. You also learn the power of guilt. You don't yell, you don't scream, you simply sigh. "I guess I'm just a terrible person. I try so hard, but nothing is ever enough for you." Suddenly, the conversation changes. You were the one who hurt them. Now, they're comforting you. It's almost effortless. You make people apologize for your own mistakes. You become an expert at rewriting stories. If you're caught lying, "It's because I didn't want to hurt you." If you're caught flirting, "You're just insecure." If they cry, "They're too sensitive." If they get angry, "They're crazy." No matter what happens, you find a way to avoid responsibility, because responsibility feels dangerous. If you admit one mistake, maybe you'll have to admit them all. And if that happens, the perfect image you've spent your whole life protecting could collapse. Eventually, their friends start noticing. You don't seem like yourself anymore. You've changed. You've become so quiet. They ask if everything is okay. Before they can answer, you already have. They're just jealous. They've never liked me. They're trying to break us apart. At first, your partner defends their friends, but after hearing the same thing, again, and again, and again, they begin believing you. One by one, the friendships disappear. Family visits become less frequent. Phone calls stop. Soon, you're the only voice they hear consistently, exactly as planned. Isolation doesn't always happen with locked doors. Sometimes, it happens with whispered doubts. Until one day, the person you love has no one left except you. And that's when your influence becomes absolute. But absolute control has a cost. The more they shrink, the less interesting they become. The confident person you fell for is gone. The funny one, gone. The independent one, gone. Now, they're anxious, afraid, always trying to avoid upsetting you. Ironically, you've destroyed the very person you claimed to love, and somehow, you blame them for it. They're boring. They're too emotional. They've changed. No, you changed them. Deep down, a tiny voice still whispers the truth. You did this, but you silence it immediately, because guilt threatens your identity. And your identity must stay perfect, no matter the cost. Then something unexpected happens. One morning, they stop arguing. They stop defending themselves. They stop crying. They simply go quiet. At first, you enjoy it. No more fights. No more questions. No more resistance. Peace. Or so it seems. But silence can mean surrender. Or it can mean someone is finally preparing to leave. And when a narcissist senses they're losing control, everything changes. Because the next level isn't about manipulation anymore. It's about desperation. The fear of abandonment becomes stronger than the need to appear perfect. And that's when the mask begins to crack. Level 5. The controller. Something feels different. You can't explain it, but you can feel it. The texts don't come as quickly anymore. The good morning messages disappear. The long conversations become short. The excitement in their voice fades. For the first time in a long time, you aren't in complete control. And that terrifies you. Not because you're losing someone you love, because you're losing someone who validates you. You call them. No answer. You tell yourself they're busy. An hour passes. Still nothing. Suddenly, your mind begins racing. Who are they with? Are they ignoring me? Have they found someone else? The irony is almost invisible. The person who spent years making others feel insecure has become consumed by insecurity themselves. You decide to act, not with anger, with affection. You send flowers. You apologize for things you never believed were wrong. You write long messages. I've been thinking about us. I miss the way we used to be. I'll change. For a moment, you almost convince yourself, maybe you really can change. Maybe this time will be different. They reply, I need time. Just 4 words. But they hit harder than any insult ever could. Because those 4 words mean something you've never been willing to accept. They no longer need you. The fear grows stronger, so your behavior becomes unpredictable. One day, you're incredibly loving. The next, you're cold and distant. Then loving again. Then angry. Then apologetic. Then charming. Then cruel. You aren't following a plan anymore. You're reacting. Desperately trying to find something, anything, that brings back the control you've lost. You begin checking their social media. Who liked their photo? Who commented? Who followed them? You notice a name you've never seen before. Your imagination takes over. You create stories with no evidence. They're replacing me. They've been lying. They never loved me. None of it is true. But your mind doesn't care about truth anymore. It cares about survival. So you confront them? Who's this person? They laugh. A coworker. You don't believe them. Not because they've lied. Because trust has never existed inside you. If you're capable of manipulating people, surely everyone else must be capable too. You assume everyone plays the same games you do. Your jealousy becomes control. Why are you wearing that? Who are you texting? Where are you going? When will you be back? What time did you leave? Every answer creates another question. Nothing satisfies you, because control isn't something you achieve. It's something that demands more and more until there's nothing left. Eventually, they ask the question you've been avoiding your entire life. Why don't you trust me? You freeze, because the real answer has nothing to do with them. You don't trust anyone. Not really. Because trusting someone means accepting that they could hurt you, leave you, reject you, and rejection still feels like that little boy standing in the living room, holding a drawing no one wanted to see. You become possessive. Not because you love too much, because you're terrified of being forgotten. You tell yourself it's love. It isn't. Love gives people freedom. Control takes it away. Then, the day you've feared finally arrives. I think we should end this. The room falls silent. For a second, you genuinely can't process the words. They weren't supposed to leave. People don't leave you. You leave them. That's how it's always worked. That's how it was supposed to work. Your mind searches desperately for a solution. You promise to change. You cry. You apologize. You remind them of every happy memory. When that doesn't work, you become angry. You'll regret this. You'll never find someone like me. I made you who you are. The words come faster than you can think, because beneath the confidence, beneath the arrogance, beneath the mask, lives someone who's absolutely terrified, not of being alone, of being ordinary. Then they do something you never expected. They don't argue. They don't cry. They simply smile, a sad, peaceful smile. And they say, "I hope one day you find peace." Then they walk away. No screaming, no revenge, no dramatic ending, just silence. For the first time in years, you're alone. No admiration, no applause, no one to control, no one to blame, just you. And the silence you've spent your entire life running from. Days pass. You tell everyone they were toxic, that they were impossible, that you deserve better. People believe you. Some even comfort you. But late at night, when nobody is watching, you replay every conversation, every lie, every manipulation, every chance you had to be honest, and every chance you chose the mask instead. For the first time, a terrifying thought enters your mind. What if they weren't the problem? You immediately push it away, because accepting it would destroy everything you've spent years building. But the question remains, quietly, patiently, waiting. Because once the mask begins to crack, it never fits quite the same again. And at the final level, the person you've spent your whole life pretending to be begins to disappear, leaving only the person you were trying to hide. Level 6. The collapse. The strangest part about losing everything is how quiet it is. There are no alarms, no dramatic music, no warning signs, just one day. The phone stops ringing. The messages stop coming. The people you thought would always admire you move on, and for the first time in your life, no one is watching. At first, you tell yourself it's temporary. They'll come back. They always do. So you wait. A day, a week, a month. Nothing. The silence grows louder every day. Not because you're alone, because you're alone with yourself. And you've spent your entire life avoiding that. You try replacing them. A new relationship, new friends, new co-workers. The routine begins again. The charm, the confidence, the compliments, the perfect first impression. For a while, it works. It always does. People still like you. You're still funny, still charismatic, still magnetic. But something is different. The excitement fades faster now. The mask feels heavier, harder to wear. You catch yourself repeating the same conversations, the same stories, the same promises, over and over again, almost like you're reading from a script. Because without realizing it, you stopped becoming a person. You became a performance. One evening, you're sitting alone. The room is silent. No television, no music, no notifications, nothing to distract you. You look into a mirror. At first, you only notice your appearance. Then, you keep looking, longer than usual, and a strange question appears. Who am I when nobody's looking? The question terrifies you because you don't have an answer. For years, your identity came from other people, their compliments, their attention, their admiration. Without those things, you feel empty, not sad, empty, as if someone erased the person underneath the mask and forgot to replace them. You think back to childhood, to the drawing, to the applause you never received, to every moment you believed you had to earn love. Maybe This didn't start when you became manipulative. Maybe. It started when you believed being yourself wasn't enough. That realization hurts. More than any breakup. More than rejection. Because for the first time, you understand something. You weren't protecting your confidence. You were protecting your fear. Days become weeks. Weeks become months. People still know your name, but fewer people call. Fewer invitations arrive. Some of your old friends avoid you. Others simply disappear. Not because they hate you, because they're exhausted. They spent years trying to prove their love to someone who never believed it. Eventually, they gave up. You begin hearing stories. They're happier now. They've changed. They're finally smiling again. At first, you laugh. They're pretending. They'll regret leaving. But deep inside, you know the truth. They aren't pretending. They really are happier. And that realization stings, because it forces you to confront something you've avoided your entire life. Maybe you weren't making people's lives better. Maybe you were making them smaller. The perfect image you've spent decades building begins to crack. Not because someone exposed you, because you can no longer believe it yourself. Every compliment feels temporary. Every achievement feels hollow. Every victory lasts only minutes before the emptiness returns. You've climbed the mountain, only to discover there was nothing waiting at the top. One night, you open old photos, smiling faces, vacations, birthdays, relationships, friends, people who once believed you were the most important person in their world. You zoom in on each picture, not looking at yourself, looking at them. Most of those people are gone, not because life pulled them away, because your need for admiration slowly pushed them away. One by one, until there was no one left. For the first time, you stop asking, "Why does everyone leave me?" and instead ask, "Why couldn't I let anyone truly stay?" That question echoes in your mind, again and again and again. It doesn't accuse you. It simply waits, waiting for honesty, waiting for the answer you've spent your entire life avoiding. Some people never reach this point. Some continue wearing the mask forever, always chasing admiration, always blaming someone else, always running from themselves. But others, for just a moment, catch a glimpse of the person hiding underneath. And that glimpse changes everything. Because the final level of narcissism isn't power. It isn't manipulation. It isn't control. It's something far more painful. It's seeing yourself without the mask. Final level, the mirror. There's an old saying, the hardest person to face is yourself. For most people, that moment comes eventually. For you, it took a lifetime. The house is quiet. No television. No notifications. No conversations. Just silence. The kind of silence you've spent your entire life trying to escape. Because silence doesn't distract you. It reveals you. You walk past a mirror. For years, every mirror showed confidence, success, charm, perfection. Today, it shows someone else, someone tired, someone older, someone who spent decades trying to become unforgettable, yet somehow forgot who they really were. You think about everyone who came into your life, friends, family, partners, co-workers, people who genuinely wanted to know you, people who forgave you, defended you, loved you. One by one, you remember their faces. Then you remember how each story ended, not with one giant betrayal, but with thousands of tiny moments, a lie that didn't need to be told, a compliment given only to receive one back, an apology that was never spoken, a promise that was never kept. A conversation where being right mattered more than being kind. None of those moments seemed important at the time. But together, they built a wall so high that eventually, no one could reach you. For years. You believed people left because they couldn't understand you. Now, you wonder if they left because you never truly let them know you. After all, how can someone love a mask? They can't. They can only love the person behind it. And you spent your entire life making sure nobody ever met that person. Then another thought appears, a painful one. What if everything you wanted was available from the beginning? Not admiration, not power, not control, just acceptance, real acceptance, the kind that doesn't depend on achievements, or appearance, or status, or winning. The kind you were searching for in every relationship, without ever believing you deserved it. Suddenly, your entire life makes sense. The charm, the lies, the manipulation, the endless need to be admired. None of it came from strength. It came from fear. The fear that if people saw the real you, they'd decide you weren't enough. So before anyone could reject you, you rejected yourself first. You buried the real person beneath layer after layer of perfection, until eventually, even you forgot where they were. Here's the tragedy. Most narcissists don't wake up every morning thinking, "How can I hurt someone today?" They wake up asking a different question. How do I protect myself? The problem is, when protecting yourself becomes your only goal, everyone around you pays the price. Relationships become transactions. Kindness becomes strategy. Love becomes leverage. And trust becomes impossible. Eventually, you realize something almost cruel. You spent your entire life trying to avoid becoming invisible, yet the only person you truly disappeared from was yourself. Maybe that's why no achievement ever felt big enough. No compliment lasted long enough. No relationship filled the emptiness. Because you were asking other people to solve a problem that only existed inside you. No amount of admiration can replace self-worth. No amount of control can create peace. No amount of applause can silence insecurity. Years later, someone mentions your name. Some remember your confidence. Others remember your success. A few remember the pain. Everyone remembers a different version of you. But only one person knows the whole story. You. And for the first time, you stop running from it. Maybe the greatest victory isn't convincing the world you're perfect. Maybe it's having the courage to admit you never were. Because perfection isolates. Honesty connects. The strongest people aren't the ones who never apologize. They're the ones who can. The strongest people aren't the ones who always win. They're the ones who can lose, without losing themselves. And the strongest relationships are built by people who don't need to control each other, only understand each other. So, what is the final level of a narcissist? It isn't becoming richer, more powerful, more admired. It's reaching the moment where the mask finally falls and deciding whether to pick it back up. Some do, some don't. That choice changes everything. Now, here's the uncomfortable question. As you watch this story, who were you thinking about? An ex? A friend? A parent? A coworker? Maybe someone immediately came to mind. But maybe there were moments that felt a little too familiar, because narcissistic traits exist on a spectrum. Most people have moments of pride, moments of selfishness, moments where they want recognition. That alone doesn't make someone a narcissist. What matters is whether you're willing to look in the mirror and change. Because the moment someone believes they're beyond criticism, beyond growth, beyond accountability, That's when the mask starts taking control. So before you leave, ask yourself one question. If the people closest to you described you when you weren't in the room, would they remember how important you made yourself feel, or how important you made them feel? The answer to that question may reveal more than any personality test ever could. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey through the psychology of human behavior, subscribe for more stories exploring the darkest and most fascinating sides of the human mind. Because sometimes, the most dangerous monsters don't hide in the shadows. They hide behind a smile.